Oscars 2024, 10 movies, 1 winner. March 10th, 2024 will all come down to a close. Stay tuned for more. Timestamps are available to skip around. Welcome to today's video where we will be reviewing and taking a look at all of the Best Picture nominees, just like I did in 2020 when I made this 22-minute long video that no one watched but was really cool to make. Now I'm recreating it, but for this year's Oscars, 10 movies were selected. In the past month, me and my associate Eduardo have seen and have been watching attentively to these motion pictures, and at the end of the video we will set our predictions with our Academy pick and provide a ranking, as well as taking a look at individual nominations.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Eduardo, and I joined this loser on a journey of a month and a half to watch a crap ton of movies primed for review. Primed like a nice juicy stack of ribs. Oh yeah. Our spoiler policy for this video is we will try our best to be spoiler free and will largely just give a general overview of the movies. If there are any minor spoilers introduced in order to properly review the movie, then we will let you know. This was a very good year for movies, if I do say so myself, so kick back and enjoy this emotional roller coaster of a video. Feel free to skip around and maybe we'll get our predictions right.
Loosely based on the novel Erasure by Percival Everett, American Fiction stars Jeffrey Wright. I'm not too familiar with Jeffrey Wright. I've seen the Batman, James Bond films, and Hunger Games, but I seriously still do not remember this elusive character. Not sure how such a handsome man has skipped my eyes. Anyways, in this movie we follow Monk Ellison, who is a very intelligent writer and professor in LA who writes novels with academic praise but which sell poorly, when suddenly he comes across another author writing books which are easier to read than Monk's complex literature, but also cater to black stereotypes and what white people think of black culture, and which Monk sees as repulsive.
Yo, Sharonda, girl, you be pregnant again? If I is, Ray Ray's gonna be a real father this time around.
He then writes his own book mocking this sort of stereotyped culture, and then it blows up in his face because the white population he was making fun of by writing the book actually loves it. There's more to it than that, but go watch the trailer for it or something, you nerd. It basically explains everything you need to know better than I just said it. There's a line in the movie, "The dumber I behave, the richer I get." I think this applies to writing in the film because it's the dumb, cheap, easy to understand content that people want nowadays, instead of the complex, hard to understand, but thought-provoking content that no one wants. This applies to Monk's writing in the movie, but can also be a metaphor for many things nowadays.
It's a movie that deals with stereotypes and tackles the bigotry of low expectations with a message that's pretty on the nose for the entire film. However, it doesn't become cumbersome at any point and remains entertaining throughout, which I think is an achievement as it was well paced with a jazzy sort of score for background music that keeps the experience fresh and inviting. And this movie is not just about that main plot, but it also focuses on Monk's personal life, which I found just as entertaining as it seems to do with the whole book drama.
Sterling K. Brown plays Monk's brother, and Tracee Ellis Ross plays his sister, and the love interest is played by Erica Alexander, and they all complement Monk's story very well. This movie is also a subtle comedy and uses this medium to crack jokes about society's expectations and regular jabs at the main character and everything far and few in between. It highlights racial discrimination while not staying on heavy themes for too long to the point where it's suffocating, yet it still elegantly paints a portrait of a troubled man in a troubled society with many flaws. In the fighting genres between this movie being a comedy or a drama, it definitely is overarchingly a drama with family themes as well, while illuminating darker aspects of this civilization. It deals with labels, especially to do with oppressive white publishers, as Monk frustratingly says,
"Look at what they expect us to write. I just want to rub their noses in it."
Is it the stereotype of what most people think, as Monk describes, quote,
"Deadbeat dads, rappers, crack. You said you wanted black stuff. That's black, right?"
I see what you're doing.
As part of the book he wrote to mock said very people reaching off of those stereotypes, or is it instead the broader image of what it means to be human? If these labels define and box in black artists and writers who feel pressure to conform in the creative industry. American Fiction comments on all of these issues and more, and even the title American Fiction is a mockery of the system itself, as if it's all fiction that ourselves we are creating with our preordained prejudices and ideas of what we think certain cultures are like.
As for me, honestly, I was laughing my ass off this entire movie, and I really appreciate the political commentary that I feel needs to be addressed more nowadays. I'm also really glad that Jeffrey Wright got his own leading role in this film. I hope that he gets more of them now after this movie comes out. But I really like this one though, and honestly, if this is one of those movies that was going to get credit for political themes, I'd rather have this one get credit than Barbie, because it states a lot of things that people in society struggle with, but things that some of them are also afraid to admit due to cancel culture and stereotypes and other means.
The best part of this movie is that Jeffrey Wright plays a complex character who is not completely right or wrong, as some of the other people against his point of view in the film bring up great points as well against his narrative, namely Senarita Golden, played by Issa Rae. To me, the movie also highlights family themes as Monk's family has to go through grief, family troubles, guilt, and drama, and things that every family has to go through, painting a picture not just of the black culture stereotyped in the movie, but the culture of any family, regardless of race, and something that can be relatable to any audience, adding the ingeniousness of the script and direction under Cord Jefferson. While this film can't compete with some of the more blockbuster movies on the Oscar list, it holds up on its own as an important drama and critique of stereotypes. Overall, American Fiction may have a clear agenda in terms of its political and societal message, but it never gets in the way of telling a compelling story with real characters, which I think is what elevated it to Oscar-level proportions, carried by Wright's amazing and witty performance. Justin Triet's Anatomy of a Fall is nothing short of a masterpiece in the crime drama courthouse genre. I can tell you what happens because the guy who dies in the first 10 minutes, so it's not really a spoiler, and it sets up the rest of the plot. But essentially there's a mom, dad, and a 11-year-old son living in a remote snowy mountainside in France when the dad is found at the bottom of a 3-story window ledge on the ground with a gash in his head and unanswered questions. The 2.5-hour runtime might seem like it drags a little bit, but it's no joke to say that every minute was utilized to its peak. Even if a scene consists of just people talking, it's so inherently a powerful use and great use of cinema because the script is so jam-packed full of suspense and is brilliant in the way it twists and weaves around the narrative, keeping your eyes glued to the screen at all time. It's probably better to go into the movie not knowing a lot, but honestly, the star in this film, of the reason it works so well, is the performance of Sandra Hiller. I apologize if I said that wrong, who actually learned French for this movie, and they even worked in that the fact of her knowing some languages better than other into the script. Weller performs so emotionally and realistically that she carries the entire film, and you can feel her presence, feel her guilt, feel her grief, feel her anger and frustration and depression all rolled into one. Her son, played by Milo Machado Graner, is also absolutely phenomenal too, especially for a child actor. His and her performance are so believable, and the film takes you on a ride as you learn more and more about these characters' complex lives to the point where you begin to relate to them, misguided lives of trouble and strife. This is much more than a simple murder mystery, but a character study.
I can honestly say this is one of the strongest and most compelling screenplays I've ever seen. There were times I forgot I was even watching a movie and felt like I was seeing a real court case unfolding right before my eyes. Everyone's acting in this film was absolutely fantastic. Sandra Hüller deserves all the credit here, just like as well as all the other characters like the father and prosecuting attorney. I think the kid in the movie did a phenomenal job. I feel like this is a very demanding performance for an 11-year-old, but he completely sold it. Everyone feels natural in the roles, and they all feel like real people.
While other crime movies we'll talk about today, such as Killers of the Flower Moon, sort of let the audience in on what's going on behind the scenes, though not all the characters know, this movie doesn't do that. When the credits roll, you're just set with this sense of, what did I just watch sort of thing. Some people might criticize this movie for its sense of keeping you guessing, and some may say that's unsatisfying, but in my opinion, this criticism is exactly what makes the film so good, because it's realistic and grounded. As Bill Burr said, it's not the traditional Hollywood ending, especially for this genre of film, and honestly that may piss people off and say it's not worth watching. I beg to differ. The sense of ambiguity as you try to understand this woman's life and his family's life conveys some of those complicated concepts about life and relationships. I never get how actors can cry and command or get angry, upset, or express difficult emotions. I know they're actors, that's their job, but it never ceases to amaze me.
Upon watching these films, we knew they were going to be good, but there are certain moments that propel it to an Oscar-worthy performance, script, score, directing, and whatever it may be. In the hour or more in the courthouse that this film spends a large portion of the second and third acts in is absolutely phenomenal, and definitely is what propelled this movie to be such a status. Because the script is absolutely brilliant, the cross-examiner and prosecutor was spot on, and I think overall the best part about this movie, without giving too much away, is that it keeps you guessing. The pacing wasn't really a problem for me, as I became so invested in the case the movie presented that I lost the track of time. The movie's very long, very dialogue heavy, and demands your full attention, so just be prepared for that going into it. That being said, every second of this movie was worth it.
Some flaws might be that there isn't really much of a score to the film. The pacing is a bit cumbersome at points, as well as some bland camera shots, but the message of the movie is still stronger than any of these flaws. At a first glance, it seems like any other movie in this genre, but many things set it apart from being a pioneering piece of art. It utilizes multiple languages like French, German, and English, yet never becomes tiresome. It is carried by the absolutely breathtaking performance of Sandra Hüller, which I cannot overstate is something that deserves absolute recognition. It simply makes you speechless to watch, and she's able to convey the intricate feelings of a grieving woman suspected of her husband's murder, that and so much more at the same time. It exposes jealousy, resentment, and doubt, which can grow and fester in a long-term marriage. It leaves you hopelessly wondering, interpreting, and trying to grasp just how problematic one's life can be, and how a courtroom brings all of that into the lamplight. Whether you like it or not, I think that is the true ingeniousness of Anatomy of a Fall. Barbie is the pinkest movie of 2023. I also dressed up to see it in July 2023 with my group of girlies, wearing myself a pink cowboy hat, pink shirt, white suspenders, and fishnet gloves, and really pink socks. Margot Robbie got paid an approximately insane $12.5 million to play stereotypical Barbie, acting in the first ever live-action movie about the icon, the Mattel plastic doll toy. The cast is also blessed with the likes of Wright and Gosling, who has bleached hair, shaved legs, and plays Ken wonderfully. Greta Gerwig and the crew could not have casted better for this honor, to be honest. One of my favorite Kens is Alan, played by Micah Cera, who is kind of just there at random parts of the film. It's really awkward and I absolutely love that for him. Ryan Gosling was nominated for Best Actor, but expressed distaste for his peers, Margot Robbie and director Greta Gerwig, not receiving any nods or nominations for anything. However, America Ferrera got nominated for actress in a supporting role, which is nice, but I'm pretty sure it's only justified by one scene where she delivers an eye-opening monologue, which had good acting, but not sure if it's Oscar-worthy. But then again, maybe I'm missing the point. But out of all these movies, this is the one I was unable to rewatch, as I only saw it when it came out in July. Perhaps Eduardo harbored different revelations as he was able to watch it more recently, and has it more fresh to mind than me.
So I personally did not get the luxury to see this in theaters or join the whole Barbenheimer movement, but I honestly enjoyed this movie a lot. I thought it was really funny, but also not for everyone. The themes about gender roles in society are explored immensely, and some may feel it sways more in favor of the rights on one side than the other. But also I think that this movie has got a lot of attention because Margot Robbie is Barbie, and that's just cool and shit. This film is definitely an enjoyable time, but doesn't deserve all the attention it's been getting compared to some of the other movies on this list. And many have picked this movie for political reasons rather than authenticity. Costume and set design are fantastic and appear to be the real winners here, and everything looks like it actually came from the world of Mattel, which some may say the entire movie is a product placement, and I suppose I can't argue with that yet. I still cannot deny that the attractive characters, the amazing world they created is surely eye candy.
I remember the first 30 minutes of this movie being a stereotypical kind of like fish out of water story, typical blah blah blah. And the magical land, something goes wrong. The main character has to travel to the outside world to solve said problem, and then funny comedy happens because they're outside the normal world and don't know how to act normal. But then as the movie progresses, things took a turn. I won't go into details as to not spoil, although I'm sure most of you have seen this film by now, but things become a lot more interesting yet convoluted is the best word I can use to describe it. The marketing for the film has a lot to do with kids, yet the movie deals with adult concepts and sensitive issues that plague our society, harboring its PG-13 rating. The hype train for this movie probably is what elevated it to the Oscars in all reality, and I seriously doubt this movie would win Best Picture, though there's no doubt the sophistication of the story. It really has nothing to do with Barbie as a toy, it just uses Ken and Barbie as a metaphor for gender relations, patriarchy, and feminism in an ever-changing society.
Much more going on here than a lovable story about your favorite doll as a kid. Fun for the whole family, so definitely bring your kids for this one. But anyway, I enjoyed this movie a lot. I like how it presents its own message well. But I don't think it promotes equality for everyone as much as it seems like it does.
He doesn't like the message. It's supposed to be satirical in many ways, and it's supposed to be full of eye-opening revelations, and I do appreciate its depictions of higher standards for looks, ideas about toxic masculinity, objectification, consumerism, and other themes that are very important to discuss. But in my opinion, it almost hit the mark, as in it could have been something that really was important in society, changing sort of way, but instead, at least in my opinion, it falls short of that ideal, and it lands sort of flatly. There are a lot of people that praise this movie for being something out of this world in terms of cinema. I mean, then again, it does have Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, but it is propelled to the level of being some of these other films, which in my opinion holds stronger and more resonant meaning.
Heartwarming story of a grumpy-ass history teacher who has to watch over a group of college students over Christmas break. So first of all, I really loved how this one was shot to look old-fashioned, even using the same logos, music, and aesthetics of a 70s film. I honestly forgot I was watching a new movie. I thought I was in a completely different time period from my understanding the movie was shot to look like said old film.
The Holdovers, oh my gosh, Alexander Payne's The Holdovers is really something else. The film depicts Barton Academy in 1970, where most of everyone, student and faculty-wise, gets to go home for winter break, but a few unlucky staff are tasked with staying behind, and a few unlucky students are stuck for the winter break living at school. What starts off as a simple comedy featuring abrasive characters, a stubborn professor, and a military adamant style of babysitting turns into an emotional roller coaster coupled with themes of loss, abandonment, family, and connection that has turned, to my eyes at least, into one of the best movies of the year. The director of this film is upset that people are describing this movie as, quote, cozy and warm, and that it's a great fit Christmas film, but I suppose it was not intended as such, but in a mainstream market where we recycle the same 5 or 10 Christmas movies every year, and I'm generalizing about that, but in a society where we do that, it's nice to have some new ones added to the collection. And where we can tell what can we tell the director except that, hey, you made a movie taking place during Christmas with warm family values and good messages. What else do you expect from audiences? One thing I want to point out is the dedication to making this movie feel like and look like it was made in the 1970s, as Eduardo said. From marketing to the movie, this movie was set to the set and the clothes and even the audio that somehow made the sound older, if that makes sense. And a visual style is created to create the illusion that this movie was shot in film, which I think is an interesting stylistic choice. People say this film is a trip back in time. Perhaps they're right, not just from a visual and auditory components making it seem like this was released in the 1970s, but from the way the script is written and how the characters appear.
I haven't seen Paul Giamatti in anything for a long time, but I remember him back in the day from movies like Shyamalan's Lady in the Water, and as a side character in most Disney movies back in the day, or from the movie Big Fat Liar. Like, what the hell? Love how this is both a teenage coming-of-age story and a story of a selfish man changing his ways. And personally, I can relate to this character a little bit because of my own experience as a substitute teacher, how he's just grumpy and is just like annoyed by the kids, at least in the beginning of the movie.
Paul Giamatti, who plays the main character, also had a bad, lazy left eye that kept wandering as a result of a contact lens that they put in one of his eyes, making him near blind in that eye, at which he had to act, drive a car, and do other crazy things the entire film with that condition in place. The messed up eye was written to the script, however, and stood for something that really touched near and dear to my heart, so it wasn't all for nothing. I think at first glance this can be seen as an Ebenezer Scrooge type of story, as the main character is also stubborn in his own ways, ideals and tradition, and won't budge, and you might say it's like Scrooge going, bah humbug, screw Christmas. But then, he finds his bearings and learns a lesson, everything's okay again, and the character slowly grows on you until you end up really caring about him. But I wouldn't necessarily make that comparison, and think it generalizes other aspects of this film, which deal with grief and loss.
Vine Joy Randolph plays Mary, the chef for the school who also stays behind at the school, and she deals with the loss of a family member. I'll just go out of the way and say their son died in Vietnam, and the movie portrays grief in a very interesting way. People think grief is crying all the time and being super depressed, and that is a part of it, but life goes on, and you can see her attempt to mask her true pain throughout the movie. But it comes out in little jabs of emotion that you can really feel, and it makes you feel painfully human to an extent. Randolph's ability to show how people try to grasp the situation and move on from something is absolutely life-destroying, is simply unparalleled in cinema that I can think of.
Paul Giamatti's character also deals with grief and loss, but it's something even more relatable, the disappointment that life has brought him. He spends his entire life trying to be someone he's not because of the future that let him down. He acts super tough and disappointed as a professor in front of the students, but deep down he has a good heart, and his chemistry with Angus Tully, played by Johnny McSessa, is the core of the movie. Their chemistry is so good, it just grows on you the more and more you think about it, and is what makes this movie so emotional and one of my favorites on this list.
Based on the book by David Grann, this film tells a story about a mass murder plot that took place in Osage County, Missouri in the 1920s, in which a large population of Native Americans were found dead by various means. The Osage were a wealthy tribe due to the large oil deposits they lived on, which made them targets by white men trying to steal their land.
We all know he's a great, well-recognized director, Martin Scorsese, so it's going to be good. And this time he tackles the story of Osage County, as he just said, and the murders that take place in the 1920s, I believe it was, where these white men married Osage Native American women who had large inheritances of oil money, and then tried to kill off the family using hitmen so that the white men and their families could get the oil money. That's an oversimplification of the story, but that's the gist of it. It stars Lily Gladstone, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Robert De Niro. DiCaprio probably should have been nominated for this performance, as he did really well. but especially in some scenes. However, he already has worldwide acclaim, so I don't blame the Academy for not giving him a nomination, especially with so many good picks already. DiCaprio also does a good job of playing the asshole in this movie, and we've seen him play both hero and villain before, but he excels at being an asshole as well, showing his versatility as an actor. The film, quote, skillfully weaves together historical events to portray greed, corruption, and justice. I'll hand the cookie of talking off to Eduardo, who has read the book for this movie and is a nerd and wants to do the little novel to film analysis because he's a nerd.
So first of all, it's great to see DiCaprio and De Niro together. They've both become Scorsese's go-to actors pretty much, and seeing them share the screen has been worth the wait. I have also had the pleasure of reading the book before seeing the movie, and the book is awesome, by the way. It's definitely a great read that I'd highly recommend. The movie is mostly faithful as the story unfolds differently. The book tells a story mostly from the perspective of the FBI, as this was one of their first big cases and was responsible for most of the strategies and technological advances that they developed in later years. However, the movie focuses strictly on the Osage people and consistently shows the sides of the perpetrators and the victims simultaneously as it unfolds. Nonetheless, Scorsese did a stellar job at bringing awareness to such an insane and important story in American history that has mostly been untold up until now. I also feel like it's necessary to compare this movie to The Irishman, which was Scorsese's previous film. Martin Scorsese is one of the most successful and well-known filmmakers in the world, and as he approaches his old age, his films have felt more like a reflection and a celebration of his life and career. Both this movie and The Irishman felt more sentimental. Final act of both films having such high emotions, characters expressing their feelings about their old age, and drawn out goodbyes. It's incredible that Scorsese was able to plump this bad boy out like a mean sausage on a hot day.
This movie is also 3.5 hours long, which might turn off some people, but if you have a normal attention span, not degraded by Instagram Reels creating short attention spans type shit, then you should be fine, you screenager. One thing I want to point out is that this is a cultural story, one that I think Scorsese recognized was important to tell because of the Osage tribe and Native American significance. From my understanding, a lot of the actors and music and locations they use all pertain to the Osage tribe. I think it's really cool that they utilize people from a not well-known culture to tell a story about said culture. It makes the story even more significant. Really glad someone did a phenomenal job acting as the wife of Ernest Burkhart, and this is where I apply the rule of some things are better with fewer words. She doesn't seem to be very talkative in the film, but you can tell what she's thinking and what she means just by saying nothing and using body and face language, which isn't easy to do, and she's arguably much more powerful by doing so. One of my favorite scenes in the film is towards the end, is the last interaction in the movie between Gladstone and DiCaprio's character, and she doesn't say much, but it is one of the most moments that stand out in most of my mind as outstanding in terms of acting.
Overall, I freaking love this movie. The Irishman was slightly better in my opinion, but if you found that boring, you're guaranteed to like this one more. There's a great deal of violence and intricate details about the murder investigation that will keep you hooked. So don't let the 3.5 hour runtime discourage you from seeing this. This thing held my attention the entire time. It's an important and compelling story that more people need to be aware of. And I'm always glad to see another Scorsese film, and I'm happy that at 83 years old, he's still able to churn out another masterpiece. So go and see this one, like, right now.
And empty your bladder before you do so.
Maestro is a biopic about the famous musician and conductor Leonard Bernstein, who is responsible for most famous works and music behind things such as West Side Story and for being the music director of the New York Philharmonic and conducting the world's major orchestras type shit. Bernstein is played by Bradley Cooper. I can't believe this is the same guy from The Hangover. They did such a good job with the makeup and effects to make him look like the real person, like the real Bernstein himself. I've only heard the name Leonard Bernstein before, but to be honest, I never knew much about him until this movie. I respect Bradley Cooper as a comedian and a serious actor. He's really proven himself for the last few years with A Star is Born and American Sniper, which I think are great shows of his ability as an actor. Some people claim this movie is Oscar bait, which in my opinion is unfair criticism. At least this isn't like Don't Look Back, which to me is the definition of Oscar bait and was only a word as a political satire to appease people unhappy with the way politicians handled the pandemic at the time. I think this film deserves all the credit, and I really believe that everyone involved did their best to make an authentic and heartwarming biopic.
I have to say that Bradley Cooper's taste in women has taken a downfall with this one. Psst. I'm saying Carey Mulligan is not as attractive as Cooper with Jennifer Lawrence in Silver Linings Playbook or Lady Gaga in A Star is Born. Just kidding, because both Carey Mulligan and Bradley Cooper did great in this movie. They also applied some aging techniques to show Leonard Bernstein grow from a young adult into an old man, and it's some of the best aging makeup I've seen in a long time. I swear it's just getting better and better at this sort of stuff. The movie is largely a family drama and a biopic of the famous conductor's life. And like any good biopic, it isn't what is in not only the good parts of someone's life, we also get to see Bernstein's flaws and problems that make up the entirety of his being. I think that's the best part of it all. No matter how famous someone is, they're still human in the end. And also, did I mention Maya Hawke's in this movie? She also plays Leonard Bernstein's daughter, Jamie, and it only has a limited appearance, but you know me and Maya Hawke, so you know this is a delightful surprise. Apparently, for the real Bernstein family who had a large part to play in making this film, it was awfully jarring to see their family drama over the years being played out by real actors, and they even used their real childhood home for some of the later scenes to make it even more uncanny yet realistic. Also, I have to point out that Bradley Cooper both directed and played the main character in this movie, and whenever something like that happens, it's always to be appreciated even more, because that's never easy.
One of the things I have to point out is how long it took for him to prepare for this role. Him being Bradley fucking Cooper. One of the most breathtaking and amazing scenes in the movie is Mahler's Resurrection Symphony in Ely Cathedral. It happens later on in the film, and I believe the symphony lasts 6 minutes, and it took Bradley Cooper a whopping 6 years for him to prepare for it, to learn how to conduct properly, to learn how to do conducting type shit properly.
I did just watch a YouTube video from a conductor's point of view, showcasing and reviewing Bradley Cooper's performance. And I think Bradley Cooper was trained by a very famous conductor, and the symphony was already prepared for him to do it, knowing that he was inexperienced. And he did make some mistakes, but overall what they're trying to do, it's a movie. He did his best. But they were also criticizing other aspects of the movie, saying they didn't show enough of his musical talent and didn't show enough of his gifts to the world, what he did as what a biopic would do, showing the major plot points of his career, instead they just focused on his family and his family drama and his relationship with his wife, which is okay, but it made it more of a picture of an unhappy man who had many flaws, compared to a biopic, a traditional biopic, saying different you get what I'm trying to say, of
the amount of dedication to take that amount of time to learn something is insane. It really shows, because it's an emotional turning point for this character, and the actual symphony itself leaves you speechless with how gorgeous and ripe with talent and emotion and breathtaking it actually is, tied together by the conducting of Leonard Bernstein, or rather Bradley Cooper, with the exact same mannerisms as the guy. It's honestly hard to tell them apart. I have a whole new level of respect for this guy, both of them. This movie also heavily focuses on the complex relationship of Bernstein and his wife Felicia Montealegre, which eventually takes a tragic and devastating turn in the final act of the film, and definitely has stuck in my mind long after seeing it.
Well, why would you say that? You're trying to spoil it. People are saying this is the role in the movie of Cooper's career, and they're probably not wrong. This movie is not complete without Cooper and Mulligan's chemistry as husband and wife, which is realistic because it's not 100% happy all the time, and almost like Anatomy of a Fall, it shows the complexities of marriage and brings the main character's shortcomings and flaws into the limelight. It has a lot to do with Bernstein's tension between his public and private life, and some criticisms of this film are that it's fairly conventional and almost what you'd expect from a biopic like this. There are a few Oscar-worthy scenes, but in a lot of ways it does seem like it's sort of flat at some points. The movie, part of it is in black and white, and I'm pretty sure Bradley Cooper actually transformed his voice for this piece to emulate Bernstein's a bit more, and I have no idea how you do that, but it sounds pretty darn good. Probably the best scene is, like Eduardo said, the Mahler Symphony, or at least that's what stands out most in my mind. But is that scene in the trials of tribulations of Bernstein's life enough to win Best Picture? Probably not, as spectacular as they are. Go check out this movie. It's on Netflix, and I was my freaking hawk in it, so you know how it is. Up there with Barbie with the amount of hype this movie received was Christopher Nolan's adaptation of The American Prometheus, a book about Robert J. Oppenheimer. And yeah, it was the adapted screenplay, except it's actually amazing, ? One thing I have to point out immediately, because I'm a silly goofy gal, is that in a lot of the first half of this movie, they say the phrase, "theory only takes us so far." And I cannot watch this movie and hear that, even if it's the most serious scene, without bursting into laughter because of this image that I'm going to pop up right there. But all jokes aside, Oppenheimer is incredible. It utilizes separate storylines, fission and fusion, which are, the atomic bomb types of the quantum physics stuff. Fission is in color, and it shows Robert's journey from a young student to a physicist, bringing quantum physics to America from Europe, and eventually being title director of the Manhattan Project. It's his life in the traditional sense. Fusion, which is the storyline in black and white, exposes the darker elements of Oppenheimer's life in a sort of genius way, illuminating his flaws and giving us the full picture of his life. Hopefully I explained that well, but it's a Christopher Nolan sort of storytelling gimmick, which can only be described as cinematic, ? It's a 3-hour movie with a lot of talking, and is not the explosion action sort of movie you're thinking of, and jumps back and forth in time a little bit.
Cillian Murphy does a great job as the main lead portraying Oppenheimer, and the movie and his performance is breathtaking to say the least, painting a picture of a complicated man. As much as I loved his performance, I also feel like part of the reason why he got the award is recognition, because he's been in a lot of things over the past few years, such as the show Peaky Blinders and other Nolan films, and this was a way of recognizing him for his acting prowess. I've always been a huge Christopher Nolan fan, and I'm hoping this movie gets him the recognition he deserves, most notably for Best Director. This film looks absolutely gorgeous, and I love how he still shoots on film and uses IMAX cameras. The cinematography is stunning, and in the theater it's an achievement, and this is what sets him apart from other filmmakers. This movie, because it needed to be shown in IMAX and came out at the same time as Mission Impossible 7, sort of snubbed that one to set to the wayside because no one really cared about it, which is a shame, and it used all the IMAX theaters for this movie, which is arguably bad timing and unfair, but it is what it is. No one pushes for physical media, which means that he doesn't want movies airing on streaming services instead of in theaters. But the fact that Oppenheimer was able to sell as many DVDs and Blu-rays as it did, especially as a 3-hour film, just proves his point that people are still willing to watch movies on disc if that's what's available to them. It's something that people should be utilizing more often.
This movie is a bit controversial for some reasons, like for instance, it's banned in Japan, I'm pretty sure, for apparent reasons, while also those of Hindu descent in India are angry at the film because of the part of the Bhagavad Gita saying, "Now I become death, the destroyer of worlds," is read during an sex scene, and that's a sacred text for them. It'd be a bit like if someone was reading the Bible in a passage about Jesus while performing, the act, so, it's just a bit awkward. But besides that, the film does a good job of capturing everything that went into the making of the Manhattan Project and Oppenheimer's personal life. However, it doesn't only deal with that, but it also deals with the aftermath of the atomic bombings and how America dealt with communist infiltration and the enemy turning from being the Germans to the Soviets. In the end, in a sense, it provides real-world implications for the modern world as it sets up the Cold War and Oppenheimer's personal affliction with things like the hydrogen bomb, all coupled with the antagonism of Louis Strauss, a character in history I've never heard of, but of whom was trying to destroy Oppenheimer's credibility, which a large portion of the movie deals with, I'll say, without getting too much detail. One gripe I have with the film is that there's less of an emotional connection to the characters than with movies such as The Holdovers or Anatomy of a Fall, and in retrospect, the characters in Oppenheimer seem kind of less close to the audience, if you catch my drift. There's no overarching moral message, unless I'm missing it, but there is a message to the world which is displayed at the end of the movie, and that's pretty darn epic. There's also so many cameos in this movie. Matthew Modine, Kenneth Branagh, Casey Affleck, Rami Malek, Gary Oldman as President Truman, and the guy who plays Roger from Diver Wimpy Kid is also in there, which is absolutely hysterical.
Robert Downey Jr. is stepping out of the Marvel spotlight, and he deserves an Oscar for his performance as Louis Strauss. He's really cool and delivers an excellent acting performance as this dude that is just really cool. I have to mention the whole Barbenheimer movement, as it was a full, big, huge phenomenon last July. And it was a good way to promote people going to theaters again, and I'm actually glad I got to see this in theaters instead of Barbie. The history of Oppenheimer is something that is a very important historical piece to come out, and it is a story that not many people know the full intricacies of, but this film displays all that and does it in an ingenious way. He basically opened Pandora's box by creating the atomic bomb. This was a fantastic movie and has already gained a lot of recognition for its achievement, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens at the Oscars. It's really important to understand how what Oppenheimer did in the Manhattan Project affected him in his later years guilt-wise and politics-wise, and what that truly meant for the rest of humanity, because what he did changed the trajectory of human civilization, and Christopher Nolan made a movie about it, so what do you really expect other than a masterpiece?
Simp alert, the biggest simp in the world. This movie is a Korean A24 film, and because it's an A24, you know it's going to be good. Like those Spotify playlists are like POV, you're in an A24 film, IDK, man, it's crazy. But basically we follow this girl Nora, who was a little kid in South Korea 30 years ago, and then she split off from her childhood crush Hae-sung and immigrated to America, and Hae-sung stays in Korea for 30 years and has absolutely no game and just sulks over his childhood sweetheart, whereas Nora goes to the United States, gets a husband, writer job, and professional apartment. This guy Hae-sung, played by TU, who is somehow 42 but looks like 25, has the nerve, the absolute gall to come to New York City seeking out his childhood sweetheart when she's literally married and is 30 years later. Like, man, get a life. Was there seriously no game in South Korea for this low life to feed on like a leash? Sorry, man, I just need to vent a little.
Now, I thought the movie was sweet. I will mention, I do think it's a touching concept. You know, the whole idea of long-lost lovers coming back. However, it's not cliche at all, and the movie even addresses this fact, which I think is good. There's a point in the movie, minor spoilers here, where Nora is talking with her husband in bed, and he says that it almost seems like fate that Hae-sung and Nora would come back together, but she says that she wasn't going to leave her husband for him. Hae-sung and Nora reconnect at different points in their life, very different points, and at that point, there's nothing to do but move on. And in this way is a very realistic portrayal of love as something that doesn't always work out. However, this is not just a movie about love. It's also increasingly been apparent that it's a movie about identity. Nora's identity changed since she was a little girl, and so is Hae-sung's. And this meeting at this point in time is like a crossroads event for both of them to find out who they really are, which I think is really sweet and touching.
It's a quiet movie in a lot of ways, not too loud or overbearing, and even with a short runtime of only an hour and 46 minutes, you still have to find yourself being patient with the characters as they struggle to coexist. This film is under the genre of romance, but it doesn't really feel much like one. It feels more like a drama, if I'm being honest. The romance does include, deals with tough questions like, who is the right person for me, as well as what is the life that I want to live or lead. And like Eduardo said, it's a really emotional journey for all of the characters, besides the fact that Hae-sung is a simp. You gotta like him and all the characters too. It's a bit awkward at points as Hae-sung is kind of awkward, and I think that was written to the script. In a lot of ways, it makes sense to be awkward in moments like that in the movie. And when I realized that the little girl he used to know is not the same person at all, yet in a lot of ways she's identical, and they have to figure out what that all means.
They themselves are meeting each other from their past lives. And when you're young and when you're older, you're different people. Life in Korea is not the same as life in the United States. This movie can also relate to people who are immigrants, as Nora's connection to Hae-sung was also her connection to Korea, which is the place where she grew up in her, quote, past life. And the movie is also about her wanting to move on from all that and type shit. Overall, will it win Best Picture? Most definitely not, but its nomination serves as a testament to the message it brings and the quiet but lovely piece of filmmaking that it is.
But he's a simp!
Poor Things is a lovable, completely normal film about Bella Baxter, who travels the world and meets many strange folk with her lovely companion, Duncan Wedderburn, and understands the beauty of life type shit. If you're looking for a family-friendly experience that is in no way out of the ordinary in any way, shape, or form, you should go see this completely non-bizarre film with your family.
Basically, Emma Stone, and this is not a spoiler because it happens in the first 15 minutes, stay safe, but it sets up the rest of the story, so I think you should know it if I'm going to talk about it. But Emma Stone jumps off a bridge, this mad scientist takes her barely alive pregnant body, takes the unborn baby's brain, puts it into Emma Stone's head, animating her into life into a Frankensteinish sort of way, and the rest of the movie is her growing up and learning how the world actually works. Would it be okay for me to call this a coming-of-age story? Sort of, but saying that seriously undercuts it because there's so much more layers to the story under the direction of Yorgos Lanthimos, who is absolutely a genius and actually kind of scary after watching this, like, stay safe. But also do not listen to Eduardo when he says, go watch this with your family, because I assure you, you will see every inch of Emma Stone's body.
Hell yeah! By the way, I know Jonah Hill from Superbad would definitely have a good time with this one. So this movie is kind of like a mix of Tim Burton and Wes Anderson's styles, where Mark Ruffalo gets to shine outside of the Marvel sphere, and I miss him so much for that. XOXO. Let's talk about the aesthetic of the movie, which is absolutely stunning. It's made to look like the Victorian 1900s turn of the century sort of era, but it's also not, because there are real elements of real life but it also feels like a fantasy world at the same time. You get to see real cities and places that exist in real life, but visually, they are warped. The costume and set design are absolutely amazing, and so much work went into the making of this film's look and feel amazingly like you're in a different world. Even the score, which consists of terrifyingly sharp string instruments being plucked in strange ways, adds to the uneasiness. There's also a comedic factor of this movie because it's a fish out of water story, but Also, Emma Stone, or Bella Baxter, has to learn about the world, and things she says and things she does are hard to understand by other characters, but to us it makes sense, as we know why she is the way she is.
William Dafoe is also in this movie, and he is a mad scientist dude with lines and scars coming out of his face. He looks super rad and burps up bubbles. He's great in this too. The movie the way it's shot is so interesting and unlike other filmmakers because some shots are in color, some aren't, some are in fishbowl format, and others are taken from unnerving angles to make this movie even more bizarre with its vibrant colors. It's definitely a weird movie, but it's fascinating and entertaining to watch. I think everyone needs to go see this. One criticism is that I'm not sure there's a central moral or message to it. Not saying every film needs one, however, there are cinematic themes that play throughout it. Baxter starts not knowing much about the world, and by the end of her travels of the 7 seas and the continents, she understands how cruel life can be and actually develops as a person. I myself thoroughly enjoyed the experience of watching Emma Stone act in strange ways, and there's a lot of things that happen in this movie, but the world having to deal with it, and the script is pretty darn good to the point where I wonder how someone came up with something like that. It's pretty vulgar at points, but I really like the bluntness of Emma Stone's character, and if you're as sensitive to certain things and not open to it being a crazy movie, then this is not for you.
Very bizarre film.
Overall, Poor Things is a must-see and competing for Barbie for best costume and set design for sure.
This is probably the most haunting but historically significant film on this list. This film is about the Haas family, who, for those of you who don't know, Rudolf Haas was a German SS officer and one of the leaders of Auschwitz during the Holocaust. There is an eeriness to the whole movie because it mixes sounds of everyday life with the terrors of Auschwitz, which is not something that we see a lot of in this film, but it's brushed over as something ordained, and that is the most terrifying aspect of it. You see the Haas family lived right next to the camp and are completely numb to all the atrocities going on next door.
Minor spoilers.
You can even notice other things and other characters in the film know that there is something going on, like the dog barking constantly or the baby crying all the time. And you can tell that these characters know that something's up, but that's not being addressed. Other Holocaust films like Schindler's List do a better job at portraying the actual physical violence that occurred, but this film takes a different approach. It attacks your auditory senses rather than your visual senses, and doesn't show you the violence, but hearing it is enough to disturb you.
The zone of interest is Jonathan Glazer's story about the family living right next to the concentration camp, and they are divided by a beautiful garden full of vibrant colors and life, and then there's a gray wall and the death and horror is right next door. The film also stars Sandra Hüller, who is in the main protagonist of Anatomy of a Fall, and the fact that 2 of her movies are nominated for Best Picture shows her acting prowess, if I do say so myself. When the credits roll and you're just sitting there, you're filled with a sense of dread and guilt and unease and everything in between, and honestly trying to put together what the hell you just watched is something that just sticks with you. This is the kind of movie that will keep you thinking days or weeks after you watch it. One thing I want to point out is the camera angles are very far from the characters, and there's a lack of close-ups, which I think helps create the uneasiness as you're far from the subjects. They didn't use a lot of filmmaking techniques like lighting. Instead, they used natural light and candid shots by putting cameras all around the main house and telling the actors and actresses to go about their daily life. Most of the movie is just regular everyday life, and there's a beauty to that too, but it's coupled with the idea deep down that what's happening next door is the exact opposite, and is the most evil that humanity could ever conjure, yet the characters are unfazed and honestly terrible people, yet you are forced to try and watch them and try to relate to them, which I think is truly awful.
When you think of a Nazi or an evil person during World War II, or any time in general, you usually don't think of someone as human or relatable in any sense at all. But this film shows you the other side of the iceberg. The everyday people that more or less contributed to these other people dying through their lack of empathy and reliance on the orders of the state without lifting a finger or even recognizing what they were doing is wrong. I'm really impressed by how dedicated they were to making this as realistic as possible, and at many times I forgot I was even watching a film. They blend gunshots, screaming, and death into the sound mixture of everyday life to paint a picture of an everyday landscape that makes you feel awfully guilty as well as repulsed at the characters you are watching. A lot of this movie goes without saying because it's obvious what is going on is wrong, and yet the movie doesn't address it at all. Or if it does, it's very little, and I think that's the best part of this horrifying film.
This is not a light watch. This is a heavy watch, and it's actually terrifying. It's kind of an art house film that doesn't paint the Holocaust in the traditional sense, and a lot of it is left up to the audience to decipher and interpret and see what's wrong, which I think is something that more movies should do nowadays. Just kind of like, just let the audience, like, there's not really like a dialogue that goes on in the movie, or like a...
There's not really a plot either. It's
a lot of it's just
candid behavior.
So yeah, that's it. That's the last movie, and now we'll move on to rankings. Okay, So I got this little sideshow got going here. We got like some of the categories from the Oscars, and we're just gonna like say what we think is gonna win and stuff like type shit. Yeah. So for actor in a leading role, they have Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Coleman Domingo for some movie we didn't watch, Paul Giamatti, Cecilian Murphy, and Jeffrey Wright. So what do you think, Eduardo?
So I would say it's kind of hard to tell because I think everyone here did a really great job.
Of course.
My favorite, I would say, out of these picks would probably be Bradley Cooper from Maestro, because I really like the dedication that they made to like. He really looks and feels like the actual Leonard Bernstein.
I think this is going to go for a lot of the categories we do, but there's already been a bunch of awards that have passed, like Golden Globes and BAFTA and SAG. So if the Oscars go off of what those award ceremonies already did, then they would pick Cecilian Murphy and Oppenheimer for like a lot of stuff for that. So he would probably win for that. Do you think it's deserved? I'm not exactly entirely sure. Like I honestly like Jeffrey Wright or Paul Giamatti better. Paul Giamatti was just more emotional than Cecilian Murphy.
His was also talked about a lot too. So
who's
Paul Giamatti? So
yeah, but also like Oppenheimer's kind of an epic, and we'll get to that too. But in terms of who I think would win, it's probably Cecilian Murphy.
Probably.
Now for actor in a supporting role, we have Sterling K. Brown from American Fiction, Robert De Niro from Killers, Robert Downey Jr. from Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling from Barbie, and Mark Ruffalo from Poor Things. Mark Ruffalo didn't do a lot besides like SCX, and he he just kind of like got like scoffed at everything Emma Stone did. Ryan Gosling, he sang beautifully and he looks beautifully, but I'm not sure if that will win him the Oscar.
You never know. Personally, my favorite is probably Robert De Niro, because I just love the guy. But like, I mean, he's been in so many things at this point and already has a high reputation. So do all the other actors. But I think the one that has the best chance of winning is probably Robert Downey Jr.
I was gonna say the same thing. If they like go upon this like Oscar hype train of Oppenheimer, Robert Downey Jr. is definitely gonna win. Who I think should win, honestly, probably Robert Downey Jr. because either him or Ryan Gosling. But also, I feel like Ryan Gosling. It's just you can't compare those two movies. It's just too different.
Sterling K. Brown also did a really good performance.
He did a good job too, but I'm not sure if he. I don't think
he may have been overshadowed by some of the other characters in the movie, but
yeah, no, he did good. He did good. No, actress in the leading role. We got. I haven't seen two of these. Oh no, one of them. We haven't seen Naiad. So we don't know who Annette Bening is, but we've seen Lily Gladstone from Killers, Sandra Heller from Anatomy, and Carey Mulligan from Maestro, and Emma Stone from Poor Things. So my take on this is it's either Lily or Emma is gonna win, but Sandra Heller deserves it.
Oh yeah.
What do you think about that?
I agree, especially after seeing her in like more than one movie. Like she definitely has great acting range. I think
she carried that entire movie. She carried like Lily Gladstone and Emma were good, but like Emma didn't do a lot besides like I mean she did, but like she was able to like act in a way that wasn't herself, which was I suppose what acting is. Lily Gladstone did a good job of like being the wife of Leonardo DiCaprio and like I don't know, expressing like that kind of like cultural, just dealing with all the murders and all that happened. But Sandra Heller, I don't think she's gonna. I think it's either Emma or Lily, but we want Sandra Heller to win because.
Well, especially since most of that movie is a very dialogue-heavy movie, so a lot of it.
She literally learned French for that movie.
Yeah, great acting range. I think she really has a shot.
Okay, now actress in supporting role. This is the one we haven't seen too. We haven't seen The Color Purple or Naiad, so Jodie Foster and Danielle Brooks. But we've seen Emily Blunt, America Ferrera, and Divine Joy Randolph. Emily Blunt, I think she was good, but her character didn't really get a lot of time to shine in the movie as much as she could have.
Yeah.
I feel like, so I don't think she'll have it. And America Ferrera, she kind of just had that one monologue that like, I don't know why she's on this list, honestly. No, she did a good job, but like I feel like it's just to appease people who like Barbie. And like if they wanted to nominate anyone for Barbie, they should have done Margot Robbie instead. But that's supporting, not act, whatever. So I think Divine Joy Randolph should win because her performances carried throughout the entire movie, and she was just so good.
Also, her character had a very emotional part in the story, and I think in that movie, her character was experiencing grief but a lot of it was reserved grief, and I think that's very relatable, and she did a really great job with it.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, time for directing. These are the ones nominated for directing. All of them are Best Picture nominees. Oppenheimer's probably going to win because Christopher Nolan, I don't think he has his directing Oscar.
I don't think so. I know a lot of his movies in the past have gotten nominated, but I don't think. Hopefully, this movie will get him the recognition he deserves. But I mean, all of these directors are great. Scorsese, we know, has already had a lot of nominations and a Best Picture win already, and even the director of Poor Things.
Yorgos Lanthimos.
Yeah.
He was like.
I know he's made a lot of.
That's like an art house. That's like an art house movie. So like it's so.
Favorite.
Yeah. So like, I think if they don't give Oppenheimer Best Picture, they might give Christopher Nolan Oppenheimer as like a courtesy thing, if that makes sense. Who I think would win? Maybe Poor Things. I think.
Yeah.
Move. Okay. Yeah.
I think most of those movies had really good production value too.
Yeah.
Poor Things is one of the best examples of that.
And then to music, original score, we have Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny, which is John Williams. American Fiction, which is like jazz music. Ludwig Göransson from Oppenheimer, who did like the song "Can You Hear the Music?" I'm not sure if I can play it because it's copyrighted, but it's a really good song. And then Robbie Robertson actually did "Killers of the Flower Moon," and then he died, which is like, I'm a big fan of the band and Bob Dylan, so like the fact that he died and made that song, made the score for that, is just like heartbreaking. And everyone says he misses them, which is really heartbreaking. And then the one from Poor Things, which is like the violins. So what do you think would win?
I think this is a tough pick because they all bring a very unique style to each of their movies. But I think, I mean, I know he's been talked about for years. John Williams, he's in his 90s. He's still going strong. He did a great job here, as he always does.
I don't know if he's been nominated before though, because like, if he
but I mean, this guy is responsible for creating some of the most iconic themes that you think, like Jaws, Indiana Jones, Harry Potter,
But the thing is,
Star Wars,
if he already composed the last four Indiana Jones, like would he get recognition for doing another one if it's just like the same theme, just like copied?
Possibly. Well, the thing is, I was going to say Robbie Robertson is also another big.
But when you think of Killers of the Flower Moon, do you really think of the score? You don't. I mean, I haven't seen it in a while, but.
Well, I think. Well, also the fact that it's also very tragic that he has passed away, and.
Yeah, you're right. There might be that.
But also one other thing to point out, Ludwig Göransson, that theme of Oppenheimer has been ever since it came out. I feel like it's very iconic for that movie itself. Yeah, definitely. So I think that has a good chance for sure.
I think it's a toss-up between these two. Scorsese and the other dude. For music. I don't know which one they'll choose. And then for sound, got The Creator, and which we haven't seen, but I've heard it's good. And Mission Impossible, Maestro, Oppenheimer, and Zone of Interest.
Now, for me personally, I would pick Zone of Interest because, like, I think the way they mixed sound just to create horror was just, like, so creative.
Definitely. Like, Oppenheimer is good. Maestro is good because obviously, like, symphony stuff. Mm-hmm. But, like, I don't think you can. I think me and Eduardo are both on agreement that you cannot beat that.
Yeah, and if I'm going to be honest, as much as I love Oppenheimer and Christopher Nolan, his sound mixing compared to some of the other movies isn't as unique as other things I've seen. So.
And then, so we're gonna do 2 rounds for the best picture. What movie we think is the best, and what movie we think is actually gonna win. So, what movie I think is the best? It's either Poor Things or Holdovers. But honestly, I feel like I like Holdovers the best because it's just so emotional, and like I got a warm feeling from watching it, and I feel like none of the other films, either that or American Fiction, they're all good. It's really hard to choose, but maybe I need to rewatch some of these because all these I only saw once, obviously for the beginning of this video. But I really like that. What do you think? What not one do you think will win, but what do you think? What movie do you enjoy the most?
I agree with you. Holdovers is definitely a high pick on my list, but I also, I would say either Oppenheimer or Anatomy of a Fall. Very, very, very intricate screenplays that you don't always see in a lot of movies. But I think it's a tough pick this year because Killers of the Flower Moon I also really like. A lot of good movies. Too. Yeah.
You're biased though because you read the book. So
that's true, but I will agree. Like,
just pick one that you think is the best. You know you can't do that, but.
Oh yeah. I'll pick Anatomy of a Fall.
Okay. This is something you like the most. And now we're gonna do what we think the Academy will actually choose. So will they pick Barbie? No, they will not. Will they pick Past Lives, even though it's a good movie? No, they will not. Maestro, probably not. It. I don't know. It just doesn't. It hits, but it doesn't hit.
Not as hard as some of the other.
Poor Things has been a contender, but I honestly think the Academy will think it's too weird to actually pick it for Best Picture. Do you think you agree?
I do agree. I mean, there have been times in the past where like some movies I thought would be getting more recognition, like The Northman that came out last year, but I guess it's just too different from what the Academy's used to, and things that are bizarre, they may not really know how to really.
And I think out of the two political messages, Barbie and American Fiction would definitely favor over that.
Definitely.
And Scorsese already has his Best Picture nomination from The Departed in 2005?
2006.
2006. But Eduardo thinks it's a toss-up between The Zone of Interest and Oppenheimer, which I think that's fair.
Yeah.
But if they go off the route of what all the other awards have done, they're gonna choose Oppenheimer for.
I would say so. That definitely
it's the most realistic.
Chance.
It's the most realistic option. But also, you have to take into account that all these movies are so good. It's
exactly, and a lot of them. That's also a very important movie, and a lot of them have very strong messages that I think people need to recognize and understand.
But like, I feel like choosing Oppenheimer is like the easy choice. Like, I don't know. It's not like hard. I don't know. Like, it didn't. It's so hard with the choice that they
I still
have
think
to
it has
do.
a better chance than Barbie, though.
Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, to me, when I watch The Holdovers or Anatomy of a Fall, there's such an emotional connection I have with the characters that I feel like Oppenheimer just doesn't have that. So if there's a slight chance that they're going off of having a moral to the story, having an emotional connection to the characters, and Oppenheimer's gonna flake. It's not gonna work. But if they want to go off of the epic cinematic masterpiece and everything else has going for it, acting and screenwriting wise, then like they're definitely gonna choose Oppenheimer, especially if they go off of the other awards. So would you choose that too?
I guess so, but I think Zone of Interest has a very good shot of being picked too, just because of the type of movie it is and the historical. I mean, they're both very historical.
And if you look at what the Academy has picked in the past,
exactly, and a lot of times they'll go with like the more art house type picture, but also not only that, the fact that it's a movie about the devastation of the Holocaust is always a very significant thing to take into account.
Okay, I think that's it. We've gone through all the movies. I think they're all fucking good, and we had a really fun time watching all of them.
This was a really great year for film.
And I feel more cinematically enthused and like well-rounded after watching all these. Don't you say so yourself?
I agree. It's been a really good year.
So stay tuned. The Oscars is March 10th, which is gonna come up probably as soon as I upload this. And we might post like a video after this saying like our reactions to it. But yeah. That's about it. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe. Smash that like button.
Stay tuned, guys.
Stay tuned. Bye.
Thank you.
If you actually watched the whole thing, thank you so much.
On the beat. Jefferson man got drip. Let me scratch and take a pic. My boy got ice. My big grip. You know my boy chick might take risks. Around the girls got flips.